this should work. If everything's working correctly, Yeah, I believe I'm recording the right screen now.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, my camera's just not working for some reason.
Oh, what a shame.
I think it might be just a browser, so maybe I can fix it.
You might have your camera being used by something else.
Oh, yep. Good call.
There you are.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm wondering what the turnout's going to be for today. I don't.
Hopefully okay. It's pretty late for me.
Yeah, I think the EU guys, it might be a bit tough too for them. Actually, wait, wasn't it more favored towards them, I think? Because it's
The
like,
EU
6
people
a.m.
kind of got screwed over a little bit because it's like 4 a.m. Germany time.
potentially, yeah. Okay, we got Norman. Hello, Andre.
Hello, hi there.
Howdy.
Hey.
Are you new? What's your name on Discord?
It's Lochita.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, I'm new. It's the
Yeah,
first time joining a meeting.
welcome,
Yep.
welcome in. Welcome in.
Welcome.
That's why I was
Good
checking.
to
Like,
be
I know
here.
we have some new people.
Yep. Hi there.
Do we know if Curtis and Nathan are gonna make it or no?
I don't know. It looks like Curtis isn't on Discord right now, or it says that he's idle. Nathan's online, but I don't know if he's gonna show up. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll give it like a couple more minutes here and see if people show. It's always the hope that they do, but we might for the next meeting, it might be leaning more towards the EU time zone because I think that we have quite a few people there.
Yeah. We could probably do it so it's like afternoon, evening-ish in the US, and it's still evening in the EU.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll make it so if Curtis and Nathan wanted to attend, it would be pretty much impossible though.
Maybe.
I think they've been pretty busy with their project anyways.
Yeah. But we'll see here. How did everyone like the book though?
Actually, oh, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's really good. I had actually listened to it before, like over the summer, and I enjoyed getting into it again.
Yeah, I was like, every time I sat down to read it, I read like an entire part because it was broken into little parts. I was just like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to get up until I reached the end of it. I'm like, oh my god, I've been.
I did 2/3 of it today, so
Yeah,
200 pages.
Jeez.
Fellow
Well-
procrastinator.
I think it's easier to read them closer to the end of the month because it's then like it's so much more fresh in your mind.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
You keep more of the information that way.
I try to do a little bit more spaced out, but it's been a busy week or busy month.
Yeah, February's short, so. Well, I guess we can just start off and get into it, like while people are joining in if they come in. But start off with here. Start off here.
Sounds good.
Does anyone want to go first? For like, I have some questions I prepared. Like, I have 4 questions, which was 1, I just want to get everyone's opinions. 2, what do we think the purpose of the book was? 3, who is it for? And 4, what takeaways did we each have from the book? So, anyone want to start off for their number 1, their opinion? Like, I guess we kind of did those, but go one by one.
You know, or like, I found the whole thing very interesting. Like the part of how little we can predict about strangers, which is kind of the same theme in Mindwise. But for me, it was actually kind of scary. Like, what the fuck? Is it that easy to be misread by a judge or police?
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
I remember he said like you should be terrified if you're ever hauled into an investigating room. It's like, yeah.
That's so interesting. I didn't even have that perspective. I guess, for my opinion, I was surprised. I really liked it. which I know is not a hot take, but I was expecting to not like it more. I only read the beginning of David versus Goliath, and I've heard a few of his lectures, and I thought they were interesting, but I don't think David and Goliath resonated with me as much, and I kind of like questioned Gladwell's arguments a lot for the first like third that I read. Um, but this was I had no complaints, which was surprising because I think I went into it expecting to disagree more or feeling like it was going to be a lot more biased of an argument. But I felt like he presented the literature really well, and I felt like some of it was also in my wise and influence and things like that. But overall, I thought it was a really unbiased take. I think it froze a little.
Yeah, a
But yeah,
little
it's
bit.
also interesting that you mentioned. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on with my internet, but I thought a lot about it because I practice medicine, and where this comes up a lot is I don't know how familiar you guys are with like the opioid epidemic in America. But in training, because we're always trying to cut back on them, I think a lot of doctors just assume a lot of patients are lying about pain and getting these controlled medications. And then I remember just a quote from like a mentor of mine saying that he was totally fine of getting tricked once or twice if it meant being able to treat the majority of people. And that's sort of like the perspective that I took from this book is it's inevitably going to happen. And so it's cool to kind of hear that idea reiterated.
Yeah, the default to truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that, like, I really liked the book. Like, I think the aspects of how they told all these stories, it was really good for like keeping my attention like in it. But there were certain parts where I was like, what am I trying to understand right now? Like towards the later part where I'm like hearing
What
about
do you
like
mean?
the terrorists, like when they're doing like the going through the waterboarding parts, I was having trouble like following what I'm supposed to be taking away from that. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
What is it you're supposed to be getting out of like the fact that people's information gets distorted when you put them under stress? I guess it's like that relates to like the cop scene, like that does relate to that. But it
I
just like
guess.
that part confused me.
Yeah, I don't think that was tied together super well. That was part 4 where it
Yeah,
was just like a suddenly like a
Mhm.
really short part 2.
it's like I got kind of like what the purpose of like when they're talking about Castro and like the spies, and when you're talking about Hitler, even it's like that part really resonated with me really well. But there's certain parts like towards the end that were like a little bit like hard to tie into the other like message of the book.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, but that part I actually skipped writing a summary. I wrote a summary for every part besides that one just because I didn't really like know if there was something new being presented. And I also felt the same way with the alcohol thing, which was it was an
Yeah,
interesting point, but
That
I
scares me.
didn't really understand
exactly.
how it related to like transparency necessarily.
Unless we're talking about alcoholic interactions with strangers,
Yeah, right. But
but that's like completely different like thing, I guess. But okay, so David, your take?
Yeah, I definitely did enjoy the book, like the rest of you guys. I think one of the things that I found the most interesting is I agree with his point that we think we know other people better than they know us when that's not really the case. And we act as though other people aren't also acting in nuanced ways. You know? Like the person who cuts you off in traffic, like it's always their fault, you know? Like it's not like they're late for work or they're
We
like
assigned the
having a
worst
rough day at
interpretation.
home. Yeah, exactly. And that's that's aggravating to me that we do that. And I don't exactly know why we do that.
Because it's egocentric bias. You see things only from your perspective. So
Yeah.
you see what you are like your thoughts are, and they're doing something else. You don't know what their reason is. If you don't know why someone does something, you naturally will usually assume the worst. But myself, at least, what I try and do is I try to think what could be their reasoning, like as if they were a child. Like you give children a big like benefit of the doubt. Like if a child throws their food across the room, it might be because they have a tummy ache. It's not because they're mad at you and they don't want to like appreciate the food. but they have some other reason that is going to make them do it.
Yeah, but this way you are just like coping, assuming the worst, like, oh yeah, the guy who cut me off is an asshole. By thinking that he's an asshole, you're basically excusing yourself from all this difficult thought process of actually understanding that he might actually have a different motive.
Yeah, you didn't realize you're doing it. Like, it could be accidental. Like, a lot of times we attribute accidents as malice. Like, we think someone did something
Yeah.
maliciously when they were just acting out of either ignorance or, completely just unintentional.
Yeah, I've heard it said like never attribute to malevolence what you can attribute to stupidity.
It's Holland's razor,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it's one of the razors.
Was it Mindwise that talked about how we were just like very anxious as creatures again? It just reminds me of that because I almost feel like back before we were as advanced, it probably wasn't as useful.
Sounds like denial of death.
Oh, maybe, yeah, it probably actually is denial of death. But I think naturally, like, we're very anxious as human beings, and only now have we like progressed enough as animals where we can start to think about having more nuance. And maybe when it was a lot harder surviving, it was just easier to attribute everything to malice because that would just keep you safer.
Yeah, it was on average safer
Yeah.
to do that. Yeah, I
The
think
world at large has just become so much more nuanced over time.
we have like previously you'd have like struggles for your physical survival, but we don't have as many of those nowadays. It's more your social survival that is actually like what troubles people these days, and that's what leads to that great anxiety, I think.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that.
Like
There was
Mhm.
there was the part about the study of facial expressions, comparing the people from more modern societies with those from the tribe people. So I mean, it's mind blowing to me that it turns out that our smiling and our angry faces or whatnot are just learned behavior.
Yeah, I think I remember like you're talking about the test where they did liars from like truth tellers.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like it was the shocking thing. Like they said in police investigators, if someone's matched to their behavior, they can get it every single time. But if they're mismatched, it's 14%.
Yeah.
It's like that's really bad. Unless I guess
It's
yeah.
I actually came across something recently that had to relate to this. It was a talk that somebody was doing about the value of communication, and this guy who was doing the talk was a magician, and he said that one of the things that's so important when you're doing magic is like your words are supposed to line up with your actions, because if say your words or your eyes or your communication, like your body language, doesn't line up with what you're doing, people are going to see the trick, because like you'll be looking at the hand that you just put the other thing in. And gosh, I'm really butchering this a little bit, but essentially what the point was is there are things that you can actively do to work on your consistency in your communication so that your body language always matches up with what you're trying to say. And I think that that's definitely a skill that I need to develop more.
I think they were talking about that when they were doing the aftermath of Sandra Bland. Like they were talking about how like the police officer was when he was going through his you know, interrogations and whatnot, like they were asking him like, was this the proper response to have? Or like, could you see how this could be taken as sarcastic? When he said, "You're done. Are you done?" It's like that's what he was talking about. It's like the ways we communicate with each other. We can try and do things that will make it more likely to match or be more appropriate to the situation.
Yeah.
But it's a hard skill to learn. That's like very hard to learn. But it's emotional intelligence, really, all it is.
For sure. I'm actually kind of curious if Brad has any experience with like the facial expression thing. I don't know why that stood out to me, but
I mean, I'm autistic, so I actually like used to be not very good at like a lot of my social cues. When I was growing up, I had a hard time empathizing with anyone, but I found when I realized I was autistic, I very, very heavily focused on it, and I got a lot better at it, like to the point where I feel like I'm quite adept at it. But as far as reading facial cues go, for truth tellers versus liars, I think I can spot liars, but I can't spot who's telling the truth. No. It's the other way around. I can spot truth tellers. I can tell who's telling the truth, and I can tell who's clearly lying, but I can't tell mismatch. Yeah, that's the same.
Yeah, so because you default to truth.
Well, no, it's like I can tell if someone is obviously lying, but I can't tell when someone is mismatched from their behavior.
I mean, how would you tell if somebody's mismatched? Like,
You can't know, right?
Well, no, yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's hard to know that. That's why I actually am very like blindsided by people who mismatch. Like I miss it entirely.
I think everyone does. So I sort of bring this up because I was like, as a kid, I was a borderline pathological liar, which is I don't know if it's something that I
I
want to
mean,
admit on on recording,
Don't
but
worry, I'll admit I was actually as well. Like
yeah.
yeah.
So I was a pretty bad kid, and so a lot of my childhood was lying, and I was actually very non-expressive as a kid as well, and I think that's was really helpful for me as a kid to get away with things. And it wasn't until a lot later in life that I had to really learn how to communicate better, and I like had to very consciously learn facial expressions, which is kind of a weird thing to say.
No.
But I like never smile before, and like it was really hard to read. And sometimes with the mask on, in healthcare, people still struggle to sort of read things from me. But I just remember like some of my earliest memories as a kid is how bad people are at picking up lying. And now it sort of makes sense now that I'm older and trying to pick things up is like there's just no way to know. Like you could reason away a lot of different things, and I just thought people were kind of idiots when I was like 8 or 9 and stealing and then lying about it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I think it's like it makes a lot of sense though. It's like either the only way you're going to pick up liars more frequently is if you're defaulting to assuming people are lying. And that has obviously negative consequences for people who do that.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
do you guys think that there's anybody in society who should not have a default to truth mindset? Like, if you're, say, I don't know, a judge or
I
a
think that it's
police
very
officer,
important our
soldier,
legal
like,
the legal system is set up so that you're innocent until proven guilty. That is that way for a reason. Like if you're guilty until proven innocent, that means that you can be charged and even if you haven't been proven, you're still guilty at that point. It's set up so that you're innocent until proven guilty so you have, some rights and you retain like your basic civil liberties. So, I don't think they should default to assuming you're not telling the truth. Go ahead.
so let's say you're a person who's like naturally a little bit paranoid, or naturally your mindset is like default to a lie.
Mhm.
What do you do there? Like, is there any use for you in society, or should you just become another way?
I think there are actually people who it's good to do that. Like when I think about it, like data security, people who work in like jobs that it's like about, how do you break something like hacking into something or to destroy certain things. Like it's counterintelligence stuff, like counter
Yeah,
security.
I definitely think there's a role for it. I mean, I've entertained the idea of just like having a group of people who do default to whatever the opposite of default to the truth is.
Also lying.
Yeah, sort sort of. But I think it might be helpful to have a small group of people who like do spot checks, and that way you'll have kind of both perspectives if you can.
Yeah. For me, I try and be someone who I assume like that people like knowing what I know about lying and like how people act. I do find that often I want to believe like whether someone's telling the truth or lying. Like I think they're telling the truth, but it's always in my mind. Do I think they're lying? Like I am consciously aware of like is this person likely to lie to me, and what did they gain from it? So I think that's the way I try and approach it. Like,
Yeah,
give them the benefit of the doubt, but be very cognizant of could they be lying to me, and what do they stand to gain from it.
So wait, you're saying that you do this on a regular basis, like in all your interactions,
Most all
like
of them,
being
yes. I assume
I
that
do
people
it
are
a
telling the
lot too,
truth,
though.
but I always am considering what does someone stand to gain by lying to me.
okay.
Because most people won't lie without a reason. Like, they gain something. Even if it's like, Yufei was talking about, like, as a kid, he would lie about, stealing stuff. And it's like, you stood to gain something by lying there. Like, you're not lying just for the purpose of lying. You're lying to benefit yourself in some way.
I mean,
So,
you can benefit yourself by having like amusing yourself. You can just lie to have fun, I think.
yeah, I mean, that's fine. Sorry, I
I
was
mean,
just,
I can see somebody just making shit up just for the sake of messing with people.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that was
that
definitely
that's
part
true.
of it.
I don't have a lot of social interactions like with people I don't consider to be like high quality. Like I limit like the people I spend time engaged with. Like if someone I think is the type of person who's gonna lie like that, or there's someone new, I'm usually always assessing someone's character whenever I meet them. Like I'm actively like taking in how does this person talk? Are they negative in their mindset? Do they say a lot of exaggerated things? Like I'm always assessing people when I'm talking to them. And if I see someone who I think is not like a very I don't want to say high quality, but like I don't really like find their character to be compatible with what I prefer to interact with, I just won't.
Brad, now I'm really nervous to talk to you.
No, I
I'm
mean
gonna be
David,
thinking about whether or not you think I'm high quality.
I mean all of you are because like I've still been communicating with you. It's like you don't exaggerate your claims or what you're saying. You don't think in this narrow-minded sense, and that's mainly what I prefer to not interact with. Is that
Yeah, I would say I'm probably the same way. I don't know if this is like abnormal or if everyone thinks that way of themselves. But I definitely, I mean, especially I interact with a lot of people, obviously, because
yeah?
I see patients and I don't know most of them. And for those, I know I rely a lot more on objective data, like lab work and their vitals and things like that. And I am generally like the more skeptical one in a lot of friend groups, especially with meeting new people, because I usually am on pretty high alert when meeting new people when it comes to their character. Um, but I don't know. I know other people kind of go by things like facial expression and whether they come off as nice and things like that. And I'm very deliberate about looking at their actions. But I
I,
don't know if that's because I default to it, you know, everyone's lying to me, or if I just care more about these certain things.
you have a good point there, which is like you said their actions, and I thought about like facial expressions can sound like it's an action, but what I think is I look at how someone talks to another person more than just if they're smiling at them. Like that's
And
yeah,
like why they could be saying the things that they are.
yeah. I think that's a very big thing. Um, so what do we think the purpose of this book was? Like, is it just to tell us like about how people act and like interact, or was there a specific goal you think that the book had?
I mean, the guy kind of starts with the story about, I don't remember her name, the woman
Vanderland?
who,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess in the author's mind, it was okay. I mean, that's what I recall from what you're saying, that he wants to avoid, that he's trying to make us understand people more and maybe be more thoughtful about other people, so we avoid these kinds of situations.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that definitely.
So I
Um,
guess his point was to, like, this book for him is just like his attempt at making the world a better place.
I'm having a thought right now. What felt weird to me is like the early chapters. You notice how they focused on really terrible people. I mean, most of the chapters I feel like kind of did, but like we have Hitler, we have pedophiles, we have you know, a spy in, the FBI or the CIA. But it's like,
CIA.
yeah, it's like, wow, they focused on some really bad people and terrorists. And it's like, actually, I guess all the chapters were focused on really bad people. Like, I mean, Brock Turner's not like the worst of them all, but he wasn't good. But it's like, I just found it interesting because like that's kind of what kept me into the book. Like, was
Just
because
like morbid curiosity.
no, it's just like the cast that they're actually. It was because of the fact that they're doing really terrible people, and I like to hear other people's sides of the story. These are characters like who are vilified, Hitler especially. It's like you're never gonna hear their side or their take or how they act or what they think, because it's only.
Isn't it wild? Sorry,
I
isn't
know.
it wild that people thought Hitler was like extremely friendly? I don't know. When I watch videos of him, I don't. It might be that we're
Like
just
that.
watching propaganda, but
That's exactly it. It's like the propaganda is like I get
I
so
don't-
like tired of looking at that. So it's like hearing any other take is like whoa. I really love it.
I've just
I
never
don't-
seen a clip of Hitler and thought this guy could
But-
convince me that he's friendly.
Look,
That's-
to
yeah.
be fair though, like we've grown up with like you can in a society where like you can call somebody Hitler and it means a bad thing.
Yeah.
Like literally his name is just associated with that. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard to think otherwise now, you
That's
know?
why I was so.
Like, I
interested
feel
in
like if I was it scares me because like let's say I was like German back in like the 1930s or whatever, like I don't know what I would do. Like I would like to think that I would be on the right side of history, but I legitimately don't know.
There's a book you might like, David, called Ordinary Men. It's about the soldiers.
It's on my list.
Yeah, Ordinary Men. It's like that talks about how like you think you're like we are products of our environment, and that includes our media. Like what we take in, like what we choose to like absorb for our news, and like our people, our influencers. That's part of your environment, and it will shape who you are. Like when you're only like news intake is like your government, who is giving you very propaganda news. You're not going to be the same person you would be otherwise. So I think it's very
Sort of
good.
like coupling.
I think it's important to control your environment as best you can. Like expose yourself to a lot of kind of news and don't get like biased sources, or try to like steer clear of them as much as you can, because it'll turn you into a different person.
If you could only have good bias sources, though, do you think that that would be preferable?
What do you mean good bias?
Like, imagine if you just had a really good environment.
Well, yeah,
You know,
I think there are good.
like would it be better to be well balanced and look at like all sorts of media and news sources and all of that and expand your mind, or would it be better just to be in a good environment and become like a good person because you're influenced by your good environment?
I think that part of having a good environment is mixed media.
So like in League, you would watch, you would watch Nice and
Nice.
I do. I actually do. That's the thing is I expose myself to multiple kinds of media creators, even the ones that have controversies about them, because I want to hear multiple sides of the take. Yeah,
So you think that there's something about like like gaining general information and seeing
what I
like
think of it.
multiple sources that is good in and of itself,
As long as you're not
because
weighing
you
certain
can't
ones over
have
each other.
good without it.
I think that if you're not educated on what the different options are, you're gonna end up biased and miss things, or you're gonna have wrong takes that you don't realize are like not valid.
What if say you lucked out and like in your league journey you stumbled across Coach Curtis and Nathan like first, and you just never watched anybody else,
Then
and
you
you
don't
just
know
say
any
got
of
the
them.
right view of the game immediately, and it's not like you did any work to get the
So
right
do you
view.
want
You
my-
just got lucky.
You want my hot take? This is hot
What?
take, especially here.
Okay.
Not everything Curtis and Nathan says is perfect.
No, you're right.
So things that you hear and take in from that, if that's your only source, you end up with incorrect takes yourself.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think the hard part is it takes a lot of time, and you can't do that for every topic that you do. And
We're
so,
social creatures.
yeah, I'm thinking that for a lot of less important things, it's probably fine that if you I've experimented a little and have found a good source that aligns with your values. It's probably fine to keep just doing that if time allows. But if you are doing something that's very important, then you should probably get a bigger breadth of opinions.
Yeah, especially because one thing I want to comment there is if your source aligns with your values currently, like fully, you're never going to get new values. Like you don't expand outwards because you're limited by what they're offering and what you already have. So you don't get to grow from that.
It does become like an echo chamber.
Yeah, it very quickly does.
I don't know if I would do like an even distribution though. you know,
No, it
like
doesn't have
you
to
might
be.
want to do like 80-20, 20% Neist or something like that.
Well, yeah, no, I think that like I watch far more Curtis and Nathan than I do Neist, but it's like I like to keep myself both up to date on controversies, like for the sake of being, able to make my own opinion of it. So I like to hear both opinions. Like I watch some Hashinshin and people don't like him these days. It's like I wanted to hear like what his side was and his reasonings, and I was really glad I did. But yeah, I don't think you should ever take information from someone else as being like 100% the only thing you should like hear and like assume their opinion. Like make your own opinion of what you hear from like multiple sides. Like that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But it requires extra work to do it. And that's why people don't often do it.
Yeah, that's why I worry about sometimes like reading these books is obviously Gladwell is I think does a reasonable job of giving other sides their fair due, but I always make a note to like look at the papers that he looks at, and then I never do, and then I always worry if I'm getting this really one-sided picture or just some other guy's opinion about this.
Yeah, that can be a real concern. It's like when you
Like
go ahead, David.
misrepresented statistics, sort of a thing.
Or even selecting papers. So like I do a lot of literature search for medicine, and it's just wild. Like you can, depending on which paper you look up for any treatment, it could work or not work. It could be totally useless or be life changing.
Do you,
Um,
are you familiar with the idea of lying with statistics?
yeah,
So
I
that's like
have.
that's the same way like reports work. You can interpret data in so many ways that you can find whatever you're looking for usually, as long as you dismiss certain results.
What's it called? It's there's a statistical term for it. We have statisticians that always talk about it. Oh, it's data mining, basically.
Hmm. I'm not familiar with like the data mining I know is like much different than that.
Well, so like I think it was very popular for business and tech to hire statisticians to find trends, but the problem is when you're looking at the stats for certain trends, you're gonna be able to find them because of how much data there is out there.
Yeah,
And so whatever trend you want to see, you can see it.
that's how you get a lot of your confirmation biases. Is people find what
think
they're looking for. Go ahead,
it's
Dave.
kind of that way for life too, yeah? Like I feel like I can convince myself of almost anything that isn't true if I just think about it for long enough. Which is a scary thought, right?
Yes, it
That's how
is.
you convince yourself to brush off those triggers, right? If someone's lying.
You know what this is a great quote I heard once. People become what you accuse them of.
Hmm. Expound on that.
I've never heard of
If
that.
you accuse someone of doing something or what you think that they're doing, they'll eventually do it. Like that's what they become because you're confirming that your bias of like when you do you know what self-fulfilling prophecies are? Like this is an idea of self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like when you tell someone like, "Hey, you're going to do this bad thing," or like, "Why are you doing this thing that they're not actually doing at the moment, but it looks like they could be?" Like you see them do an action and it can be either good, bad or neutral, like how you perceive it. You choose either neutral or bad. And your reaction to them causes their next actions to be changed. Because people like if you treat someone rudely or you don't act like you say that they're doing something like say they're lying or that
Mm.
they're going to change their behavior because no one's response to being accused of lying should be civility. Like that's actually why a lot of things like politics, like Republicans and Democrats, they act so rude to each other that they can't actually be like personable. Like they can't have a positive relationship a lot of time because of how they treat each other. which makes it so that the correct response to being treated that way is to not cooperate. Like, when has it been someone has been rude to you and you've just been polite to them afterwards?
This is a biased group, to be fair.
Well, yeah, but just like think about that question. Like, when was the last time someone was really rude to you and you just acted polite to them still?
Yeah, we never do that. Yeah.
Because your correct response is to be distant or, upset, or to, be like, I'm not talking to you. You never just like continue being nice to them. Because it infringes on our like self-respect. Like if we stand up for ourselves, we don't respect ourselves then.
It's like an ego
Well,
thing sometimes.
To what level is that self-respect healthy? Like,
I think it's very
don't you? Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think it's very healthy. If someone's being extremely rude to you, you shouldn't let them walk on you.
I think letting someone walk on you is different from being not kind to them.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying don't be kind, but
But I
letting
mean,
yeah.
well, I don't know. I would say I've done that a reasonable amount of times. I'm not perfect, and certainly if someone does something bad to me, sometimes I will still be really upset and mad at them. But I think because especially with how League works, I mean that happens all the time. is someone's griefing you, and you kind of just learn not to respond to it, and you don't.
See, I think
You
that
can even be kind.
that's where the Broken by Concept group I think is more biased than most players, because a lot of players
Right,
their
that's what I
response is
mean.
not to be like to block them out and be the better person. A lot of people
Yeah.
they just engage back.
Right. And so I think there's a better way to handle it besides kind of lashing back,
I agree.
having seen the results of both.
I think that that's actually what we all try and do in like this group here. I think it's like we are trying to be better than that. And there's a Stoic quote like the best revenge is to not be like the person who wronged you.
Yeah.
I think it's
Mhm.
Marcus Aurelius. But yeah, I try and live by that a lot. It's hard though, like especially when you get emotional.
It is. It makes a big difference. I think that's been a big learning goal like 2 years ago. And I've been in situations where I've been very deliberate on practicing that. And it's been really helpful for diffusing. It's actually kind of miraculous how well being kind to someone who's being a total dick to you is.
But it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Like once you be kind to them, their response is more likely to be kind. Like we have you know what mirror neurons are? It's the
No.
part of our brain that we reflect whatever emotion someone else is showing us. So if we're shown anger, we respond with anger. But it's like that's why when you're deliberately choosing to be kind instead, they're more likely to become kind. It's like that's a major part of social interactions. It's just mirror neurons. You get them from your parents when you're like a child. Like your mother, like her, make like directly interacting with you. You mirror whatever her like emotions are.
That's why if you react really severely to like a kid getting injured, like of course they're going to have a more like
Yes.
overblown reaction.
Correct.
Mm.
That's why
Yeah.
children do that. They react to the emotions of the adults. And that's exactly why when you're kind, you're choosing to be kind deliberately, people are more likely to be kind. But that's also why in League that might not work because people don't have a face-to-face interaction.
It's harder to directly mirror because like all of the communication you're getting is just like words.
There's no nonverbal communication. Like there's no
Exactly.
body language, there's no tone, there's no like facial expressions. You're relying purely on words, and words go through your interpretation. You interpret what the words mean to you. Is someone being
Yeah,
spiteful, rude? Are they being sarcastic? You don't know unless like it's how you choose to see them.
and then
Well,
people default
just-
to.
You also kind of
Go on.
interpret like body language and facial cues too. It's just a lot more subconscious most of the time.
Well, I mean in League of Legends, like at the text chat.
The
The best you get in League is pings and emotes. Like actually, I think that there's a severe layer of like nonverbal communication that comes through how you ping. Like, are you the type that you're spamming pings? Are you pinging like helpfully? Are you emoting like positively to your allies? I think that actually does have a lot of like action. Like it reflects how your communication is, or if you're actually like assisting with something, but you're taking all the CS. Like I'll never forget this one moment stands out to me. I was playing top lane. I wasn't doing super well, but I was not like terribly behind. I had an Aurelia roam up and get a gank, like my Aurelia mid lane. She helped me get the kill. Like she got the kill, and then she helped me push in the wave. This is Aurelia. She took 0 minions. That stood out to
That's
me.
surprising.
Yeah. Okay.
That stood out to me so heavily because she was fed. She could have done it, but she left me every single minion, and I will never forget how much that boosted my morale. And I
Yeah.
played around that Aurelia the entire game we won.
You're
That's a
talking
better
about this
man than me.
Aurelia. Like she saved your life.
No, it's like just it stood out to me how much she respected me. Like she respected my resources because she got the kill, and like I was, I need those resources to stay relevant. Like it just really stood out to me like, wow, that is actually like you're respecting someone else's resources. You're not taking from them what they should have.
I think there is an argument to be made, like in solo queue, if you have a feeder or I mean someone who is very behind, I don't think you would normally benefit from giving them more kills.
Well, no,
Like,
I'm not saying you have to give them the kills, but like this is their CS. This is their jungle camp.
Yeah,
Like-
it's sort of like, well, it's sort of like I guess no one's a jungler here, right?
I'm a
No, but
jungler.
Oh, you are. Okay.
okay.
Well, I don't know if you're in Salt 2 and stuff, but like,
Yes, yes.
yeah, all the time you have to like help get the wave, and then you don't have the luxury of just waiting for them to last hit every single creep. And it often is, especially in lower elos on the replays, there's often like a lot of pings back, and people get mad. And Nathan says it's like a good adaptation to then just leave the wave because you know it's gonna tilt them.
My take.
But realistically,
yeah.
it's not like the best strategic play.
Well, I'll say this much: like when I think about like what the Aurelia did for me, you don't have to like delay your pushing in the wave, but it's like every time you could last hit that minion, just switch to a different minion. Like let them get the last hits behind you, but just keep switching minions you're targeting.
Well, it's some. I mean, at least from a jungler's perspective, it's a matter of seconds. Sometimes you don't have 10 extra seconds to
That's why it has to be
make sure he's getting the minions. You just want to reset.
in
Yeah.
my like. I've tried to execute this in my own games, and generally speaking, it is not hard to do. Because if you ever play support and you're trying to help your ADC shove in a wave, it's not hard to do. You just don't get the last hit. You just get them low, switch targets.
Well, it's a little different. I mean, like if you're, let's say, like a jungle Karthus and you just gank for top lane,
You use your E
Warren,
and you just get the wave prepped, get it in.
right? I mean, that's like the nice thing to do, but sometimes it's not always the best thing for the team.
I think you lose like 3 seconds max.
Oh, it's more to the just the CS is better on you as Karthus.
Yeah, the thing. Okay, actually, maybe I should explain this thing. I think it's better to not play a 4v5.
Right, and so that's why it's like the adaptation. But then you have to sort of read the room a little, because the higher up you go, that's just like a normal thing that people are okay with. But most people who don't play like the game at a higher level will probably be insulted and not think about the big picture.
Well, in my experience, like I see it as just because it's like normal higher up to do that, putting more eggs in one basket isn't always the best approach. Because you actually can like shut your ally out of the game, and like their lane could be bad. If you got the kill on the gank, you're leaving them in still the same bad position.
I think we're getting stuck in the weeds, but
Yeah, we
but
are.
I think as a
Talking to
jungler,
strangers.
that happens all the time.
Well,
is
yeah,
we leave a lane
yeah.
to kind of just
I'll tie it back to talking to
get
strangers.
crushed.
Like to tie it back to talking to strangers, like I choose to give strangers like the benefit of the doubt. Like unless I think they're tilted, I want to let them play in a way that they can, try to express themselves. Like show why they're in this rank. They clearly deserve it because they're in it. So I try and make it so I'm not denying them their ability to do so. Like that's me giving strangers the benefit of the doubt.
And yeah, I think that could actually be useful for solo queue. Giving stranger the benefit of the doubt.
Now, I will say I have a hard like I judge people's tilt levels really heavily. Like if someone's toxic or tilting, I will quickly change that opinion of like, okay, I'm not gonna allocate here. But some people I know that they do that and they go, if this person's tilted, I'm gonna allocate to them because I don't want them to just throw the game. But that's a debate for a different time. So what takeaways do we all have from the book? Just
Wait, who did we say this book was for?
yeah, who the book?
'Cause
Who is
I,
the book
I
for?
didn't think about this question, and now that you asked it, I'm curious.
I feel like it's for the woke.
Wait, please elaborate.
It's for people who are trying to be socially conscious. I think. Like it's kind of like it's one of those like things like that's one really trendy thing to do, I guess nowadays, kind of. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. But
So just like trying to help normal people get a better understanding of just social interaction.
I wouldn't call it normal people, because I feel like if you're just like going through your life and you have no like need to like think about other people's perspectives, I don't think you're gonna pick up the book and do it. I don't think you're gonna sit through it.
Well, I guess you could say that for all books.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
agree
mean
with that.
that's a big thing about reading. But go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that I agree with you, Brad. If you're already like doing well socially, I don't see why this book would benefit you in any way.
Yeah, you wouldn't be interested in it, I don't think. Like, why do I want to know about how other people think?
Yeah,
I mean, you can always be better.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like when you want to be better, like when you're trying to be socially
I guess
conscious.
yeah. If you want to improve on your social skills.
Yeah, that's who I think it was for. Like, and I think that's kind of like what we try and do here, kind of like in a way. Less social skills. Like, I think the BBC is not so much a social skills focused thing, but I think the book club kind of is like a lot of recent stuff and like mind wise or influence.
It's very psych heavy.
Yeah, we do a lot of social sciences.
I don't know if Gladwell. I don't know. I want to think on it more. I was surprised actually by the. I've had this book for a while and I've never opened it up until now.
The title
But when I
is kind of
yeah,
interesting.
when I got the book, I thought it was going to be more about how to communicate and stuff. But the book really just focuses on
The failures of
most,
communication.
yeah, and how we like read instead.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
how we listen and interpret people. There's not a single thing about
How to positively
really
communicate.
yeah. It's not like a proactive thing. So I was
Actually,
surprised by that.
I think there is like a proactive thing if you just take it in the reverse.
Right.
Like
yeah, just
deliberately
don't
take
do.
it in the reverse. Like
Yeah,
don't assume people's like because they're mismatched or like someone is, not acting correct in the situation. Like don't assume the worst of them. Like try and see like what could be their reasoning for that.
Yeah.
Or
It almost feels
just
like
deliberately try not to be mismatched yourself.
It requires mindfulness, basically.
that's true. It just feels like the book could have been named like Listening to Strangers and been more accurate, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's yeah. I mean, I think the title's fine, but like it's a bit off the mark for what the content is about.
Yeah. I like it. It was unexpected for me.
I think it could have been doing something like the fact that he focused on all these like really bad cases like of people or interactions. I feel like he maybe could have alluded to that in the title.
Yeah.
But okay, that's who the book is for in our opinions. What are core takeaways that each one of us had? Like for me, I had remember that like the default to truth, like this is the way that people think, and try and stay focused for if you think someone is mismatched, why, or like could someone be mismatched from their behavior? It's hard to tell if someone's mismatched from lying though, but getting to know someone can make you a worse judge of their character is another big one I had for me.
I feel like maybe that's on a curve though.
Possibly.
Like, the people that I know really well, like
That-
I definitely like.
That's different though. I
I
think.
could tell if they were lying way
Yeah.
better. Yeah,
That's not a
It's-
stranger.
maybe-
It's once you get like to a certain point, yes, you know the person, but like
yeah.
once you've
That's
learned
why I
to
said it's like on a curve.
Online,
Or
socially, we present a version of ourselves like that is not actually accurate to who we are. Like we always put our best foot forward online. We hold back certain information that's like we don't want to expose immediately. And that's like that curve you're talking about because when you're at that point where you only know the good things that someone's put forward, you don't know that person fully yet. And once you cross
That's
it into knowing them, you actually will know who they are like more as fully.
yeah.
I think in general we're not as good as we think anyways. I know like Mindwise touched on that. It's like, the more you know them, the higher your score gets, but it's only still by like it's still in the 50s
Yeah.
percentage wise.
Well, I think another thing is like people like when you start to know someone, you start to assume you know them. So that's like the issue there is like you start like making assumptions of the person, but the thing is people are always changing. Like we're always developing ourselves or changing certain parts of our character as we, try and get better or, we might slip up on something we used to be pretty good at. So if you assume that what they were previously is just who they are, you're likely to make the mistake of, not seeing who they are now. That's a big thing for me. That's why I think it's always important to like try and ask someone's current opinion on something. Like, what do you want or what do you think of this? Even if I, a week ago you asked them the same thing, because they might have changed their mind in that time.
Yeah, just in general, when talking with other people, assuming seems like a bad idea because you can never really be sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's assuming makes an ass out of you and me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely thought of that phrase when I was reading, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Or other people's takeaways.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it was. I mean, I didn't really stay and think about it because well, I just finished it like 1 hour ago, and then I took a quick nap before the meeting.
Same. I'm buying time right now.
But I felt like it was really interesting how um, smiles or getting angry or the surprise face is not something we are born with, and it's taught social behavior. Like that was just mind blowing to me. And being aware that just because someone looks shocked to me doesn't necessarily mean that he's shocked.
Yeah. I think
So that was huge for me.
there's a life lesson to be taken away in like I think David mentioned this earlier. It's just like choose how you act around other people carefully. Like show them the best interpretation of like yourself.
There's a lot that you can do that's like within your control with how you act and how you present yourself around other people.
Mm-hmm.
And this book
Yeah.
definitely renewed that idea in my mind. Also, this book made me a little bit more wary of alcohol. Like I've always
Yeah.
been somewhat wary of alcohol. Like I'm usually, if I'm going out with some people, I'm usually the designated driver, right? But it genuinely scares me how alcohol can change a lot about a person and can make you unaware or of what you're doing or
The part on blackouts.
do things that you normally wouldn't.
The part on blackouts was pretty like wow, because you said your hippocampus shuts down at 1.15, and it's like you don't have any memories at the point.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could go on for forever on some of the kind of disturbing cases I've seen with alcohol, but and not like patients, like coworkers, and like doctors who drank a little bit too much and like ran in front of a train. I mean, like they didn't get hit, luckily, because we grabbed them back, but they don't remember any of it.
Yeah, that's
And it was like a scary moment because that you could easily like lose your job for that. But they were like otherwise a great person. Like you would have never guessed that that was ever gonna happen.
well,
And people were like really shocked and like
something important. Like I try to keep in mind a lot. Like this is something I try to keep forward in my mind is everyone has their own problems. everyone has something going wrong and something that's stressing them out and something that they're anxious about.
Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
human condition. So if you think someone's perfect and they don't have any problems, it means you just don't know them yet.
Yeah, I think I talked to them actually for a good amount of time after and got them into therapy. I think it was interesting watching everyone else's reactions who were also doctors, but they were just like then treated them as if they were some kind of psycho, and like that alcohol kind of like showed their true self, even though their day-to-day actions were 100% different.
It's funny that I think like you just take that moment to analyze the other people.
Well, I don't know. But yeah, well, because I sort of like mommed that whole thing and like spoke to everyone at length and followed up for like weeks to months, and people were like really scared of this person. Whereas I was also getting the person's side and like watching their journey through therapy, and
You took it like personal involvement in it.
yeah. So it was very interesting. Also, I'll fit in my takeaway before we run out of time.
Yeah.
For me, it was, I think definitely that defaulting to the truth is like a necessary evil, and the alternative is not really better, even though it seems like it would be. And also, I'd never heard of coupling, which I feel like probably comes up in other of the Gladwell books. But that was actually a new concept for me, and really helpful to just read in writing.
I remember the word. Like, can you give a quick refresh on like? I remember I heard it. Like, I just can't remember the
Yeah.
exact definition.
It's like the context matters a lot.
Right.
It was
Right.
with like the crime and guns and
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That is true. Like, that's big.
yeah, I mean, it ties back to what you're saying about being online too. You know, the context of being online and how we present ourselves. Like we probably don't factor into the fact that we're a bunch of people sitting online and don't know each other in real life.
I think
Well, if we thought about it,
I
I think we would have different conclusions.
I look at how our online personas are viewed like the same way you look at dating apps. People put forward what they want people to see.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't use dating apps.
Well, it's like you understand the concept though. Like people put up their profile and this like who they are showing. Hey, this is who I am. But it's not
Yeah.
who
And
they are entirely.
I mean, largely, like you kind of do that in real life a little bit too.
Yeah.
You do, but it's harder to hide
Like-
the things that you don't want people to see.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But even any social media, right? Like you look at your friends' social media and then you know them in real life, and
It's like this is not the same person.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so ratings. Let's get that slipped in here while we can. Or did
Is this
David-
out of 10?
did you give your takeaways, David? Or like,
Yeah,
everyone did?
yeah.
So yeah, ratings out of 10. So we can just put it in chat. All right, so 3, 2.
Wait, where is the chat?
I don't
Uh,
have chat pulled up.
yeah, so-
Okay.
I found it.
3, 2, 1. All right, so
I love that caveat, Yufe.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna do it. I know myself, but that would be the only thing that lowers the score for me. Is I think the presentation's really great.
Do we want to go for like start a new meeting and discuss the ratings, or do we feel like we have a good understanding of why? Like we can do another call and I can just start a new one up, and then it'd still be on the recording.
Yeah.
I feel as though
I'll-
I have a pretty solid understanding of like why people rated it as they did.
Okay.
Like this makes. I mean, we can keep talking if you guys are interested. I would definitely.
I don't mind.
Be
It's
down,
up to you guys. I
but-
know the time might be late for someone like Yufe, or
I'm just gonna go to bed after, but
yeah, it's up to you guys. Do we have yeses for it?
well, we have 2 minutes, so so
Alright, yeah.
I guess we could just talk about it now.
Yeah. Okay. So I give it 9 because it was a lot of things that I found really, it made me sit there and actually read the whole thing pretty much. Like that's impressive for me. So I give it a 9 for just the way it was told as a story and the information. But David,
I gave it a 7.5 because I did really like it, but it wasn't like revolutionary or life changing, but it did remind me of a few important things, and it did get me to see some new perspectives. So
all right, Yufe.
Yeah, I thought the storytelling was really. He's just like a great storyteller. It wasn't super new information, but I don't want to like discredit a book just because I already read other things in the genre.
All right, and Andre.
Yeah, I also liked the way the book was written. I think that was really, I really liked that. But I feel like it wasn't that life changing. Like it wasn't that big for me. So that's why I went with 7.
Fair. All right, guys. I think that is our time then.
Thanks for the session.
Yeah, I'll be putting up a poll for next month's books. Probably towards the 27th, I think, probably. And we'll do the next vote. I'll see how the EU guys, if I can get this video so it's easier for them to access.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I'll try to have the next